Hello guys, I'm Combo Mate from Productions. As this recording, I'm less than 12 hours away from seeing Hobbs & Shaw in theaters. This film will mark the first Fast and Furious spin-off and being the 9th installment in the franchise. And simultaneously, Fast and Furious 9 is shooting and the 10th one is on the way, supposedly in 2021 as the time of this recording. With Fast and Furious being one of the biggest franchises of all time, I wanted to talk about the best Fast and Furious film in my opinion that forever changed the franchise as we know it. And wouldn't be nowhere near the success it is now if it was for Fast 5. Normally when you think of a 5th installment in the franchise, it's either a horror action franchise that has lasted too long or it's part of a cinematic universe. Why does Fast 5 out of all the films outdo all of them, in my opinion? Well, before we get into that, let's talk about the history of the franchise beforehand. The series started out as just fast cars in action, but not to the extent of the later films. It was way more small scale and focusing on straight races rather than submarines or tanks. The first Fast and Furious film came out in 2001 and carried off the series with the main characters being established. Then 2 years later, Too Fast, Too Furious came out and was worse and more goofy than the original. Rewatching these two films made me realize how different the franchise was back then and how outdated they are now, but I still have a fun time with them. Then in 2006, the black sheet of the franchise in Tokyo Drift got released. It was the first Fast and Furious film directed by Justin Lin, who directed the next 3 sequels and is currently doing Fast 9 and 10. This film was a step up in my opinion. It felt more personal than most of the other Fast and Furious films, along with it having an interesting story and an awesome soundtrack. At this point, it seemed like the franchise was dead, with only Paul Walker returning in the second film and Vin Diesel having a cameo at the end of Tokyo Drift, which he only did because he cut a deal with Universal to get the rights to the Riddick series, which Universal locked up the rights in a vault after the Chronicles of Riddick was a disappointment. So that's a little fun fact for you, but anyways, the franchise seemed dead until Fast and Furious came out in 2009 and brought the main 4 actors from the original Fast and Furious film and changing up the franchise slightly, focusing on bringing down a cartel. This film would set the stage for Fast 5 to come in and blew everybody's expectations out of the water. To start off with, this is the first true action film in the series, going on a full global scale and not just focusing on a small time story. It is about pulling off the biggest and most difficult heist in Rio. Not only is the story way bigger in scale, but it also heightens the drama with Mia being pregnant and Brian becoming a father, along with Dom trying to find closure because remember Letty was supposedly killed off in the previous film and was completely absent in the movie apart from a post-credit scene featuring Eva Mendes returning from the second film, seeing Letty's file, hinting she's alive. Along with that, the film wraps with a loose end from the first film with Vince having a family and everybody becomes a family again. It has the most dramatic weight of every other film in the franchise with the exception of Furious 7 due to Paul Walker's tragic death. I know that these movies aren't meant to be dramatic, but it's nice to generally feel more personal stakes inside the film and not in a forced way like the Fast and Furious 6 or Fate of the Furious. Along with that, we have our antagonists. We have our usual bland villain, but we also have the introduction of none other than Hobbs, The Rock himself, which his appearance in this film is easily his best, with his arc being very satisfying for hunting down Dom's crew to helping them out. Plus, it's always cool to see The Rock and Vin Diesel duke it out on screen before they hated each other's guts. And then we got the characters themselves. One of my favorite aspects of Fast 5 is that it feels like an Avengers-style crossover with characters from each film coming back to the franchise and providing a wider range of cast than the later sequels have, and also each character getting something to do, and nobody feels left out. And although the movie is over 2 hours, the pacing doesn't drag due to how enjoyable it is to be around the main cast and has some great jokes inside of it as well. Then we get to the action, and wow, does this film deliver with possibly the best action scene in the franchise with the vault being dragged across Rio, destroying everything that crosses its path. And it's so much fun to see just an insane concept be handled in the best way possible, and that's the reason why this film works better than any other film in the franchise. It had the perfect balance between insanity and realism. This scene is so much more intense than the action scenes of the later sequels. Not to say they're bad, but the franchise knows that they have to keep upping the stakes to keep the audiences interested. And mark my words, we will see a Fast and Furious film in space at some point. And what I've been hearing and what's been shown in the trailers for Hobbs & Shaw, it's extremely goofy and over the top. Not to say it's a bad thing, but you can't deny the series has turned into a cartoon. Unlike Fast 5, which generally felt like an action film and contained enough that it was a character-driven story along with it having a narrative. This film did change the game for the series and it's been better than it was back 10 to 15 years ago when it started, but Fast 5 will always be my favorite because it has the perfect sweet spot of comedy, drama, and action that keeps you invested throughout, and it's just a complete blast that is more entertaining than the films that came before it or after it. Also, the title for the movie is one of the better ones in the franchise. I mean, look how inconsistent the titles are, but that's a whole different video. Anyways, that's a wrap up. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content. I'm Combo Movie Productions, signing out.